Tangled in Tulum Part 4. Chapter 19, Heroines wear hemp. She could have worn armor. She could have worn silk, or designer linen, or anything that said professional. Anything that screamed influence, status, forgiveness. But Lana Cruz walked into the Delgado board meeting wearing nothing but a raw hemp wrap, a hand-woven sash made by a Mayan elder, and enough sacred rage to turn a boardroom into a battlefield. And for the first time in weeks, she wasn't trying to be understood. She came to be feared. It was held in a luxury hotel conference room in the middle of downtown Tulum. Cold AC. Glass walls. Bottled water that cost more than her staff made in a day. The board of Delgado International sat in sleek chairs, sipping espresso and smirking like predators who thought they had already won. 12 of them. 11 men. 1 woman. All wearing suits. All expecting Nico. But instead, they got her. Lana strode in barefoot, head high, wrapped in ivory hemp that clung to her like wind and willpower. Her skin was sun-kissed, her hair braided with jungle flowers, and her only accessory was the jaguar beaded bracelet she'd finally reclaimed from Jasper the day before. And oh, did she wear it like a crown. The board blinked in stunned silence. One of them chuckled. Another whispered, "Is she lost?" But no one stopped her. Because her presence hit like prophecy. She stood at the head of the table. Didn't sit. Didn't ask. She placed a stack of documents, eco-impact reports, land rights filings, sanctuary proposals onto the polished glass table. And then she spoke. "I'm not here to chant. I'm not here to journal. I'm not even here to heal." She scanned the room. Let the silence stretch. "I'm here to tell you this, if you break this land, you will bleed from it." One man scoffed. Another tapped his pen nervously. Lana didn't flinch. "You don't own Tulum. You don't understand it. You came with drones and bulldozers, but the jungle doesn't forget. The land remembers your greed, and now so does the world." She held up her phone and played a clip. The barefoot protest. The international coverage. The jaguar cub licking the hand of a crying child. The headlines, Lana rises. Sacred land fights back. Then she turned to the woman at the table, fifth seat from the end. "You studied under Isabella Delgado, didn't you?" Lana asked softly. The woman's eyes widened. She gave the faintest nod. "She would be ashamed of this," Lana said, her voice cracking not with weakness, but with purpose. "Of all of you." She paused. Then leaned in, eyes sharp. "So here's your choice. You can be the villains in someone else's podcast, or the heroes in your own story. You can build a casino that will collapse under scandal, or fund a sanctuary that will make your names eternal. Your call." The room was silent. Tense. Until the woman spoke. "We never approved the helipad," she said flatly. One of the men looked over. "We didn't." Another investor frowned. "Wait, was that the Alta Vista amendment? Wasn't that filed after Nico left the board?" someone else asked. The cracks were forming. And Lana? She didn't even smile. She simply gathered her papers, placed the bracelet back on her wrist, and turned toward the door. Just before walking out, she paused. Glanced over her shoulder. "Oh, and for the record," she said. "This is hemp. It's biodegradable. Unlike your reputations." Then she left. Barefoot. Radiant. And more powerful than ever. Outside, the press was waiting. Flashes. Microphones. Shouting voices. She said nothing. Just raised one hand, fist closed, bracelet gleaming. And the image went viral in minutes. Inside, the boardroom sat in stunned silence. And one by one, they began to turn. Chapter 20, The Silent Auction Ambush. If you're going to start a revolution, Lana Cruz thought, you might as well do it in stilettos. The Almadel Jaguar Foundation Gala was the event of the season in Tulum. Champagne towers, celebrity influencers, politicians in white linen tuxedos pretending to care about conservation while checking their follower counts. It was exactly the kind of place Lana once would have avoided. But tonight? Tonight, she had a plan. The dress was gold. Bare-backed. Slid high enough to silence critics. A deep V neckline hugged her like a promise, and her heels glittered like tiny knives. Her makeup? Sharp. Smoky. Ruthless. The look said, "I am not here for your approval." She entered the gala like a goddess on the warpath. The ballroom was a fever dream. Crystal chandeliers, floating orchids, low ambient jungle sounds piped through speakers as guests sipped hibiscus cocktails and admired the silent auction wall, a digital display rotating through glamorous items. Weekend in the Maldives. Dinner with a celebrity shaman. Custom eco-yacht retreat. And then, just as planned, a new item flickered onto the screen. Item number 44, Sunset Date and Jungle Picnic with Lana Cruise, a journey of healing, hosted on sacred land. The crowd gasped. Lips parted. Glasses clinked. Phones were lifted like weapons. Whispers rippled through the room. Is that real? Isn't she the scandal girl? I thought she got cancelled. Lana stood beneath the spotlight, poised and unbothered, holding a single cacao flower. Camila, standing at her side in emerald silk, smirked. You really know how to make an entrance. Lana didn't respond. Her gaze was on the bidding tablet screen. And then, the first bid appeared. $5,000. Then $6,500. $8,000. The crowd stirred. Someone near the front muttered, "She's trending again." And then a final bid blinked across the screen. $100,000 anonymous. Gasps. A woman spilled her champagne. Someone dropped a shrimp skewer. All eyes swiveled toward the entrance. And there he stood. Nico Delgado. In a black-on-black suit, tailored to sin, no tie, shirt unbuttoned just enough to break hearts. He moved through the crowd like he owned the air around him, every step a scandal waiting to happen. He walked straight to Lana. Stopped in front of her. The room fell into a hush. He leaned in close enough to stir her perfume, close enough to make the world fade, and whispered, "I told you I'd never stop bidding for you." She blinked. "Is this a game?" "No," he murmured. "It's my confession. I'm all in." The cameras caught it. The flashbulbs burst like stars. The video hit social media before dessert was served. Ex-lovers reignite jungle war at $100,000 date auction. Hashtag scandal at the sanctuary. Hashtag Lana and Nico again. The foundation board was livid. The investors were shaken. But the youth donors? They exploded with joy. She weaponized the gala, someone tweeted. Queen. Lana Cruise just hijacked capitalism with cleavage and a cause. Date auction for conservation? Iconic. Later that night, as the last of the champagne fizzled in crystal flutes and paparazzi were kicked off the beach, Lana stood barefoot in the moonlight on the back veranda. Alone. Until Nico joined her. He said nothing for a while. Then held out his hand. "You're more dangerous in a dress than I am in a boardroom." She didn't take his hand. Not yet. But she didn't walk away, either. "I'm not your charity project." "I know," he said. "You're the story I never deserved to be in, and still can't stop chasing." They stood there, two silhouettes tangled in fame, failure, and something far older than either of them, faith. Chapter 21, Tulum is not for sale. By now, Lana Cruise had learned that Tulum spoke in signs. Birds flying west meant change. A cracked cacao pod meant someone was lying. And a coconut dropping suddenly from a tree? That usually meant chaos was coming. But even she couldn't have predicted how loud that chaos would be. The leak hit just after sunrise. First as a whisper. Then a headline. Then a global scandal. Exclusive, blackmail tape reveals Nico Delgado was forced to push casino plans. Lana was mid-meditation on the retreat roof when Camila burst through the beaded curtain, phone in hand. "You need to see this. Now." She handed her the screen. It was a shaky, grainy video clearly shot from a hidden camera. The audio crackled, but the voices were unmistakable. Nico's. And another, colder, older voice. "You're stalling again, Delgado. I gave you the land rights for one reason, so you'd build what we agreed. The Foundation never wanted a casino. That land is sacred, my mother. Your mother is dead. And unless you want the truth about her investments leaked to the press, you'll do what I say. Or I'll ruin what's left of her name, and yours." Silence. Then Nico, through gritted teeth. "I'll find another way. But not like this." The man laughs. "There is no other way. Welcome to the price of legacy." The video ended. Lana stared at the screen. Her breath caught somewhere between rage and heartbreak. Camila was already scanning comments. "Wait, who's the other guy? Is that Eduardo Navarro? Wasn't he Delgado Sr.'s old partner? The Eduardo Navarro? The oil guy? How does he own sacred land?" Lana's voice was low. Flat. "Because he bought it with lies. Years ago. When Nico's mother was dying. Within hours, it was everywhere. The jungle fire that had been burning behind the scenes was now a full-blown inferno. News channels. Podcasts. Protesters. Celebrities tweeting #Tulum is not for sale." Alicia Keys reposted the video. So did a famous wellness influencer with 12 million followers and a line of gemstone-infused collagen powders. And the impact? Immediate. Navarro Holdings stocks plummeted by 11%. Alta Vista Holdings issued a statement. "We were unaware of any coercion. We are re-evaluating our involvement in the Tulum development project." But Lana? She wasn't celebrating. She was pacing back and forth in her retreat garden, barefoot and fuming, while Nico stood in front of her exposed. "I was trying to protect her name," he said softly. "That land, it was supposed to be a sanctuary. But Navarro held the deed. Quietly. Secretly. I thought if I played along, I could outmaneuver him." Lana spun toward him. "And you weren't going to tell me? I couldn't risk the board finding out too soon. I didn't know who was on his payroll." She shook her head. "I was out there fighting for your name. Your mother's name. With nothing but hemp and hope while you were playing poker with a villain in a yacht suit. I was protecting you," Nico said. "No," she snapped. "You were protecting your past. And sacrificing your future." He stepped closer. "I would have told you. I swear. And I would have stayed," she whispered. "If I hadn't had to find out from a leak." Silence. Then. He reached into his shirt pocket. Pulled out the jaguar beaded bracelet. And handed it back to her. "Not like a gift. Like a surrender." "I won't fight you," he said. "Not anymore. But I will fight for the land. With or without you." She stared at him for a long time. Took the bracelet. And walked away. Not because she didn't love him. But because Tulum wasn't the only thing that had been sold out. And some things had to be bought back with fire. Chapter 22, Karma, Baby. There's something delicious about revenge served in designer resort wear. Especially when the people you're targeting are sipping champagne on the upper deck of a yacht called El Destino surrounded by LED-lit palm trees, live saxophone solos, and guests who think sustainability is a hashtag, not a responsibility. Lana Cruz had never stepped foot on a billionaire's boat before. But tonight? She was about to sink one. Metaphorically, of course. Mostly. The plan had started in the jungle. Just 3 days after the leak went viral, Lana met Nico behind her cacao grove, beside the ancient stones where his mother's ashes had been scattered. Their truce was silent. No grand apologies. No kisses. Just an exchanged look that said, "We're not done. Not with each other. Not with this fight." And then Nico pulled out the flash drive. Proof Navarro falsified the land transfers. He forged the ownership with 2 shell LLCs after Isabella's death. I got it from an ex-attorney who owed me a favor. Or 6. And he's throwing a party? Lana asked. Nico smirked. To celebrate the launch of the rebranded eco-luxury development model. In other words, PR damage control. Lana didn't blink. Then we crash it. And take him down. The yacht glittered like a floating palace, anchored just off the coast of Tulum, bobbing smugly in the moonlight. Lana arrived in a white silk gown slit to the thigh, hair twisted into a crown of braids, eyes lined in jungle coal, and a look that could cut glass. Nico wore a black linen suit, no tie, collar open, jaw tight. They boarded separately, like strangers. But the moment they locked eyes on the upper deck, the whole world tilted. Navarro stood at the bow, bronze as ever, dressed in cream Gucci and flanked by press. He held a champagne flute in one hand and a microphone in the other, basking in the glow of his own delusion. "This land will become a beacon," he said. "A place where prosperity and preservation can dance in harmony. We are here tonight to honor that dream." Cue the polite clapping. Cue the drone camera rising. And then cue Lana. She stepped forward. High heels clicking against the teak wood. Voice calm. Measured. Lethal. "You mean the dream you bought with blackmail and forged signatures?" The gasps came immediately. Navarro blinked. "I'm sorry, who?" "Lana Cruz," she said. "Owner of the retreat you tried to bulldoze. Daughter of this land. And bearer of receipts." She held up a flash drive. "Would you like to explain how these contracts?" She turned to the nearest news anchor. "List his name on deed transfers 2 months after Dr. Delgado's death." The anchor stepped forward. Cameras turned. Navarro's smirk faltered. Nico emerged from the crowd. "Want me to play the tape again?" he asked, holding his phone up. "I've got better audio this time." Navarro's face drained of color. A few guests backed away. Someone spilled a cocktail. Someone else whispered, "Call the legal team now." Lana walked slowly toward Navarro. Not in anger, but in vengeance-fueled grace. "You tried to bury us," she said. "But it turns out, we're not weeds. We're jaguars. And Tulum is not for sale." Navarro opened his mouth. No words came out. The saxophone player stopped mid-note. A journalist shouted, "Mr. Navarro, did you falsify the documents?" Another shouted, "Is it true the foundation owns the easement?" Panic exploded like confetti. Investors reached for phones. Paparazzi leaned over railings for better shots. A PR rep fainted into a canopy tray. Lana turned to Nico, heart pounding. He grinned. The yacht, the champagne, the legacy, the whole illusion was sinking. And karma? She had just arrived in heels. Chapter 23, Mud, Money and the Mayan Queen. It wasn't just a protest anymore. It was a movement. And now it was a coronation. 2 weeks had passed since the yacht party imploded in scandal. Eduardo Navarro had disappeared into a legal black hole. The forged deeds were officially invalidated. Delgado International severed all ties with the casino project. And the land, the sacred jungle that had once been set to become a glittering neon nightmare, was returned. Not just to the foundation, but to the people. The ejido elders, the herbalists, the guides, the midwives and drummers and jaguar trackers who knew the forest better than Google ever would. And to celebrate, they threw a party that no one would ever forget. They called it a cleansing ceremony. But it was nothing short of a fever dream. Hundreds gathered in the jungle clearing where bulldozers had once tried to pierce the sacred soil. Now, the earth was cleansed with copal smoke and smudged with sacred mud. A circle was drawn: salt, flowers, cacao shells. Fire dancers painted in ochre spirals leapt and spun. Drums thudded like a second heartbeat beneath the mossy floor. And in the center of it all stood Lana, barefoot, wrapped in ivory linen, her face streaked with ceremonial clay, and her arms covered in jaguar print body paint gifted by the shaman women of the coast. She was radiant. Raw. A warrior priestess who had fought with nothing but truth and hemp. To the people, she had become something more than a yoga teacher. She had become La Reina de la Selva, the queen of the jungle. Then came the twist. The elder who presided over the ritual, Abuela Colitl, face lined with ancient knowing, lifted her hand in the firelight. To seal the cleansing, she said, voice booming in 3 languages. We call upon the sacred masculine and sacred feminine to unite in symbol, not law. A wedding of spirit, not state. A blessing, not a binding. Lana blinked. Then stared at the elder. What? The crowd parted. And there he was. Nico. Barefoot. Shirtless. A woven sash across his chest, ceremonial clay smeared down his jaw, and a single orchid tucked behind one ear. He looked like a god pretending to be human. And he was smiling. Relax, he whispered as he stepped beside her. It's just fake. Symbolic. They do this for energy rebalance, blessing the land, honoring the duality of life. I swear to the jungle, she murmured, if this ends up in People magazine. But she was laughing now. Nico held out his hand. And she took it. Because after everything they had survived, blackmail, betrayal, drones, dates auctioned off like scandal candy, this was the easiest decision of all. The crowd circled them. Mud was smeared across their arms. Cacao was poured over their feet. A jaguar tooth necklace was placed between them. And as the fire roared and drums crescendoed, Abuela Colitl declared, these two are bound, not by paper or power, but by purpose. Let the land rise again. The crowd erupted in wild cheers. Dancers spun, chanting. Camila cried into her drum. A flaming arrow shot into the night sky and exploded into embers. Lana laughed, breathless, mud-streaked and golden. She turned to Nico. This is still just symbolic, right? He looked at her. Eyes fierce. Mouth soft. Then said, that depends. Do you want it to be? And under a full moon, surrounded by the land they had saved and the people they had finally given it back to. Lana didn't answer. She just kissed him. Like every vow had already been made. Chapter 24, I do. Or do I? They told the press it was a private ceremony. Just a symbolic union, they said. A gesture for unity, for legacy, for the land. But when the floral arch was built over the ancient cenote, when the eco-journalists started arriving in linen suits with drones disguised as dragonflies, when the designer hemp-veiled gown was delivered from Paris via solar-powered jet, it didn't feel symbolic anymore. It felt real. Too real. Lana stood in front of the mirror inside a palapa suite surrounded by wild orchids and murmuring women. Her dress, flowing, ivory, backless, looked like it belonged in a Vogue cover story titled The Jungle Bride Who Saved the World. Her skin shimmered from the herbal oil scrub the midwives had insisted on. Her lashes curled like sirens. Her heart? Panic. It beat out of rhythm with the wind. Camila, seated beside the vanity table, sipped a hibiscus mimosa and tried not to stare. You're quiet, she said finally. I'm thinking, Lana whispered. About what? Lana turned, slowly. Whether I'm marrying a man or a metaphor. Because here was the truth she hadn't said aloud. She loved what Nico had become, this new, grounded version of him. The man who walked barefoot in the cacao grove and told stories about his mother as if she were still guiding them. The man who stood beside her during protests and jungle ceremonies and never once tried to dim her light. But she didn't know if she loved him. Or the dream he now represented. Because love in Tulum wasn't clean. It was tangled in vines and politics and legacy. It was sweaty and symbolic and bathed in moonlight and pressure and 100 strangers' expectations. Was it real? Or was she falling for the story? For the myth of what they'd survived? For the rush of being adored and photographed and mythologized? Was this what she truly wanted? Or what everyone wanted from her? Outside, guests were gathering around the cenote altar. Photographers murmured about natural light. A jaguar dancer spun incense over the entryway. Cacao was poured into tiny clay cups as a blessing of fertility and truth. And Nico waited barefoot in ceremonial white, standing on a sacred stone, his hand resting gently on his heart. His eyes searched the path for her. She hadn't stepped forward yet. Back inside the palapa, Lana took one more look in the mirror. Not at the gown. Not at the glitter. At her eyes. And asked herself, do I love this man? Or do I love the version of myself when I'm with him? She exhaled. And turned to Camila. What happens if I walk out there and say no? Camila didn't hesitate. Then you'll still be Lana Cruz. The woman who saved the jungle. The woman who didn't need a wedding to prove her power. And if I say yes, then make damn sure it's because you want to, not because it looks good on camera. Outside, a murmur moved through the crowd as Lana finally stepped into view. The drums picked up. The wind circled. Nico's face lifted in relief, his hand stretching out to her like he had always known she'd come. She took slow steps toward him. The arch glowed behind him in vines and woven gold. The cenote shimmered at their feet. The elder began the blessing. Do you come here freely, to stand in truth, to unite spirit and soul? But before the next word was spoken, Lana froze. Not visibly. Not dramatically. But internally, something pulled tight in her chest. Her lips parted. She looked at Nico. And for the first time, he looked afraid. Because even he could tell. She wasn't sure. Not yet. Not fully. I do, she started. Or do I? Chapter 25, Sunset, Sweat and Second Chances. There was no official wedding. No final vows. No glittering drone shot above the cenote altar. Lana Cruz had stepped away just before saying I do, and in the hours that followed, the world did not collapse. The jungle did not swallow her whole. The guests did not riot. Instead, they applauded. Because even in Tulum, where illusion drips like mango juice from every leaf, there is something far more intoxicating than a perfect story. A woman who knows what she wants and waits until it feels right to take it. 3 days passed. 3 humid, soul-searching, dust-in-your-pores days. Lana hiked alone through the wild green belly of the jungle, barefoot, mud-streaked, guided only by the sound of howler monkeys and her own breath. No stylists. No photographers. No Nico. Just the jungle and herself. And when she returned, she came back barefoot, skin kissed by sweat and sun, braid messy, and soul quiet. She knew what had to come next. What she didn't expect was what came first. Camila met her at the edge of the grove, practically vibrating. You need to come now, she said. Bring nothing. Just trust me. Lana followed. Down the newly repaired cobblestone path. Past the healing pools. Around the meditation spiral where 3 toucans watched with interest. And there beneath the giant ceiba tree stood Nico. Waiting. Wearing a worn linen shirt open halfway, curls damp from the heat, sleeves rolled, barefoot, a light sheen of sweat across his chest. No armor. No spin. Just Nico. And something in his hand. She approached slowly. I didn't expect you, she said quietly. He nodded. I didn't expect you to come back. I wasn't sure I would. Neither was I, he admitted. But some things are worth not being sure about. She almost smiled. Then glanced down at the envelope in his hand. What's that? He handed it to her. Inside? A deed transfer. The land. All of it. Signed over. To the Almadel Jaguar Foundation. Fully. Permanently. In his mother's name. No strings. No fine print. No shell corporations. Just a note in his handwriting. This land never belonged to me. It belonged to her. And now it belongs to the ones who kept it alive. Lana pressed the paper to her heart, her throat tight. You did this. Nico shrugged lightly. I'm done trying to own things that were never mine. That includes you. Tears stung her eyes. But, the casino. Dead, he said simply. We pulled the permits. Told Alta Vista to go build somewhere else. I offered to fund a wildlife corridor in exchange. They took it. PR was more important than profits. And your board fired me, he said. 3 days ago. She blinked. You lost everything. He stepped closer. Smiling soft, unshaken. No. I just finally figured out what's worth keeping. The sun dipped low behind the trees, casting the grove in honeyed gold. The heat was sticky, and the air smelled of cacao and rebirth. They stood in silence. Until Lana finally said, I want to rebuild the retreat. He nodded. You should. And I want you there. A pause. But not to save me. Or to fix anything. Just, to dance barefoot under the moon sometimes. To wake up late and drink burnt coffee. To breathe in the same wild air. Nico stepped forward. Closed the space between them. No kombucha this time. She grinned. God, no. And then? She kissed him. Not for the cameras. Not for the cause. Not for the myth. Just for them. Salty skin. Jungle heat. Lips and promises and every unspoken thing between two people who had fought, fallen, risen, and finally found peace in the chaos. Somewhere in the trees, a jaguar cried. Somewhere on social media, a photo of them kissing in the mud hit 1 million likes. And somewhere deep in the soul of Tulum, a new love story began. Untangled. Unbranded. Unapologetic. That's the end of this story, but trust me, the next one is even more thrilling. We drop fresh episodes every day, so don't miss out. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, you won't want to miss what's coming next. Thanks for listening to Billionaire Romance Stories, where love meets luxury in the most unexpected places. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like, subscribe, and drop a comment. We love hearing your favorite twists and favorite theories. And don't forget to ring that bell, because in this world of yachts, secrets, and luxurious romance, the next story is always one click away.